bounce. He turns the corner, drives to the hole, banked up, got the back. Oh, what a shot.
All right, welcome to the very first episode of the SEC Connect, a show all about men's SEC basketball. With that being said, just quick side note, I am technically labeling this as an SEC men's basketball podcast, but if there is any big news just generally across all of men's basketball or anything across all of SEC sports, I will probably end up covering it. Like the Texas and OU, I think, are joining the SEC coming up with football and stuff, so I'll cover all of that, see what I think about it. I'll be covering March Madness stuff. I'll be going over just really any big news relating to those two subtopics with the title. And also, just a quick little self-introduction. Not really, but I'm a big Arkansas fan, so there is going to be a lot of Arkansas bias, but I'll make sure to, acknowledge that I'm being biased and give like an actual, like a real opinion to what I believe is correct. So yeah. For today's episode, we are going to be covering pretty much anything postseason. So I'm going to be doing our defensive teams, pretty much all of the all SEC team awards, all the player awards, which I have added 2 awards that I think are a nice little just overall addition to the total awards. And I'm also going over the SEC bracket, the tournament, end season tournament. I'll be going over who I think is going to win, who I think are underdogs, people that are overrated, teams that can make a big run, teams that can beat other better teams and knock them out of contention, whatever. We'll get there eventually. But to start off, I'm just going to go straight into the meat of the content, and we're going to start off with the all defensive team, so I'll be right with you. All right, so here we are with the all defensive team. Basically, for those of you who don't know, this is going to be a team voted at the end of the season that basically the 5 best defenders in all of SEC, and I wouldn't say I'm more so all these awards. I'm not predicting who I think is winning. I'm just I'm picking who I personally think should win, or if I had like my own ballot, this is who I'd be voting in. All right, so the first player that I have voted in, and this is in no particular order, it's mainly just based off of position, really. So the first player, Jonas Aidoo. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I haven't watched enough Tennessee basketball to really get that pronunciation down, so my apologies. But yeah, he's the defensive anchor, the defensive anchor to the second overall defensive team in the league. So they have the second best defense in the league. Let me get his stats up real quick. He's averaging 7.6 rebounds. Sorry about that. 1.8 blocks, which is I think that's tied. Let me see where he is with blocks right now. He's 4th in the league for blocks per game. That's not total blocks, but that's just per game stats. But yeah, and I think his steals number is 0.7, which is pretty good for a big man. All things considered. Let's see. Yeah, I mean 6'11". He's a big guy, a big body, big forward. He's gonna take up a lot of minutes for that team. He's taking up a lot of defensive responsibilities for that team. And you watch it whenever they play. I know I said I haven't watched much Tennessee basketball. Whenever I do, you can see the defensive impact he has, the way he anchors this high quality defensive team. All right, so the next player that I have voted in for my all defensive team is none other than Janai Broome. We'll talk about him a little bit later, trust me. But yeah, I mean, his numbers are off the board right now. Let me pull these up real quick. Yeah, I mean, he's second in the league in rebounds per game. Well, not per game, but total rebounds. He's second in the league for blocks. He used to be tied for number 1, but I think right now, as of now, the numbers they're not in his favor right now. But yeah, they are right now. I believe they're either the number 3 or number 4 defense in the league. I'm gonna pull that up real quick. Number 3 defense in the league, and he's a really big part of that reason. So is Coach Bruce Pearl, but we'll get there also later. But yeah, no arguing Janai Broome. He is an all defensive player. He is. I'm gonna spoil a little bit, but he's definitely a candidate for defensive player of the year. So there's no way you can not put him in here. All right, so the next player that I have voted in at that 3 spot is Cameron Matthews. I mean, he's just when you look, I love wing defenders because they have to end up guarding big man. They pretty much have to guard everyone on the floor, and he does that at such a high level. He's such a valuable player to their defense. I think their overall team stats. Let me see. Yeah, so overall they're number 4 defense. So a big theme with all these players that are here is they are on really good defensive teams. There are, I think, either 1 or 2 players up here that are not, but we'll get to them and I'll explain why they're up here. But yeah, he's on the number 4 defensive team. You look at his stats, I mean, they just jump off the board to you. Right now he's second in the league in steals. He has 7 rebounds even. He averages that. And 0.8 blocks as a wing. I mean, there's all of these stats combined with the eye test. I mean, he is just a guy who is going to go out there and anchor this defense on the perimeter. And you don't really see that. You don't see perimeter guys be like the main defensive player. Usually it's the center who's going to be anchoring the defense. But Cameron Matthews, I mean, he does all of it on the defensive end. His hustle, his heart, the way he plays the game. Obviously, his offense is not really there, but that's not what he's on here for. He's on here for defense. So yeah, let's get into the next player. All right, so the next player that I have voted in is Reed Sheppard. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone saw that he was going to be here. One of the best defensive freshmen in the league, if not the best defensive freshman in the league. His numbers are just insane right now. Let's see if I can find those numbers real quick. Yeah, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more on the other side of the ball, but his steal numbers are just insanely high right now. He is a menace on the defensive end. Yeah, so he's leading the league in steals per game, and I'm pretty sure he's leading the league in total overall steals. I don't know if I mentioned this last, but Cameron Matthews is second in the league in steals, right behind Reed Sheppard. I don't know if I mentioned that, but just want to throw that in real quick. I mean, you look at his overall numbers. I mean, he's just, as a freshman, averaging 2.6 steals per game it's insane. You don't really see that happen that much out of a freshman just coming right into college. His block numbers are also pretty high for being a guard. He's at 0.7, which is about the same as Cameron Matthews, which is pretty good. Rebound numbers are a little low, but like I said, he's a guard. He's not really in the rebounding. He's out there defending the perimeter, and there's all the stats that help him with that. You can't really argue any of them. He's also, I mean, he's really low on fouls. I mean, they're kind of high, but in terms of your like on-ball attack perimeter defender, 1.9 personal fouls per game really is not that bad at all. All right, my last nominee for the all-defensive team is going to be Jordan Wright. I believe I got to pull up his numbers as well, but I mean, Jordan Wright, he's also one of those guys that is just on the perimeter, just anchoring everything. He's making sure nobody gets anything easy. He's out there you just watch it, just the eye test. You can just tell he puts so much heart and effort into defense, and the numbers reflect that. Let me get those numbers pulled up real quick. All right, so for this season, he is at 1.7 steals. I'm not sure if if he's leading the league at that or if he's up there high. He's not. He looks like he is tied with Mark Sears, so he's right about that 3 range, or that he's about tied for 5th in the league for steals per game. But yeah, he is a little bit higher on the personal foul side of the ball, not of the ball, but the personal fouls. He's at 2.5, which is a little bit higher than Reed Sheppard, which I just mentioned. His blocks are really low at 0.3, but then again, he's also on the perimeter. So, I mean, Reed Sheppard had high block numbers, and he's on the perimeter. That's just not normal to have that many blocks. His rebounds are actually a little bit higher than Reed Sheppard's. You can just tell watching him. He puts so much energy and heart in the game. All these guys on this defensive list, they are just guys that are just relentless on the defensive side. You look at them, and it's like, are they ever going to just give up on a play? And they don't. None of these guys give up on the play. This is just a well-rounded defensive team overall. But yeah, I think the SEC defense this year has been insane because normally you look at us as we are a guard-scoring league. We will have some defensive guys, but not really until this year. And we've had some really good defensive teams, defensive players. It's honestly amazing to watch as an SEC fan. It's like, I don't know. But anyways, that is my all-defensive team. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the freshman team now so we can get a look at that. All right, so the very first freshman, and now this list is a little bit more in order of caliber of player, but the only difference is 6 through 8 right here, 6 through 8 on the list. Those are more of like bench players. 1 through 5 there's not really an order. 1 through 5 that is actually in position order. But 6, 7, and 8 those are just kind of like the throw-ins. They are below all of 1 through 5. So this first player is Silas Demery Jr. Damari. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Once again, I haven't really watched many Georgia games this year. They're not really the most interesting team this year overall, but I'm not here to drag on Georgia. But yeah, he's averaging 9.5 points per game. His steal numbers are really high. He is someone that could have potentially made that defensive team as a freshman. You look at his numbers: 1.5 steals per game, 0.4 blocks per game. His rebounds are just too low. He's only at 3.7, but his 3-point percentage isn't very good. He's only shooting 28. Sorry, I thought that said 26, but yeah. Field goal percentage is at above 40, which isn't the best. He's at 42.3%, which isn't the best, just in terms of field goal percentage, but it's not bad. So he's not out there being super inefficient. His free throw percentage is at 73, which is about league average. Not really nothing special there. But yeah, I mean, you watch him play. He's another one of those guys where it's kind of the eye test. You just watch and you can tell that he, as a freshman, he knows the game very well. He's going to go out there and score. He's just a nice little boost for this Georgia team, which hasn't really had much to look forward to this year. Sorry for dissing Georgia. I know Arkansas hasn't been very good this year either. But yeah, that's my first pick for this team. All right, so my next pick for this team is Aiden Holloway, a guy that I have watched a lot, and I mean a lot of this year. I've watched a lot of Auburn basketball. I love the way they play. I love their coach. I love their culture. Yeah. So with Aiden Holloway, he did have a very strong start. With pre-conference play, he played amazing. Was shooting the ball very efficiently. Was going out there scoring, being the main ball handler for this team. But once conference play hit, he kind of hit that freshman wall. His numbers dropped pretty good. They weren't terrible. They weren't good though. By no means they were good. He was just being inefficient. He wasn't taking the right shots. You could tell he was kind of being a little hesitant with his shot. But I mean, he plays for a team with Bruce Pearl is known this year for running a lot of players. They don't really run a strict lineup. I think pretty much everyone, he plays like 10 players a game. All of them are about 20 minutes. So it's easy for him to kind of lose his groove. It's kind of hard to get that groove. And once you get it, like I said, it's easy to lose it. But yeah, you look at his overall numbers. As of late, he's been doing very good. Last game he played against Georgia, he put up 15 points, which is decent for a freshman. But he's only averaging 7.9 points per game, which isn't bad. But like I said, it could have been better if he had a better, like that middle of the season, that early conference play. If he would have done better than that, he would have had higher overall numbers. But his turnovers are really, really low for a freshman guard at only 0.8. That's really good. That's what you want. He's averaging 2.8 assists, which, I mean, he's averaging a lot more assists. He's almost doubling his assists per turnover, which is a good ratio for a point guard, especially a young point guard. But his defensive numbers aren't really all there. He's averaging 0 blocks per game, 0.4 steals. That's not really what he's known for. He's not really known to be a defensive guy. He's known to be offensive initiator and offensive guider. He puts this offensive team together. Other than that, he has 1.5 rebounds, and he's short, so you don't really expect anything out of him. He's only 6'1". You don't really expect him to go out there and grab a bunch of rebounds. His 3-point percentage and field goal percentage are really inefficient, like I was saying. He's shooting 31 from 3, 31%, and he's only shooting 32% from the field, which is a really ugly number to look at, which make you question why he's on this team. But just his proficiency in the very beginning and the very tail end of this season, I mean, you can't really ignore what he's done for this team. All right, so for some reason my recording got cut off, but as I was saying, Aiden Holloway, he deserves this spot. But yeah, we'll go ahead and move on to number 6 on this list. Luckily, cut off at a good time. I just finished up on Aiden Holloway. But yeah, number 6, we got DJ Wagner. He's been really good. He's been super... I don't even know how to say this. He's been good. Yeah, he's been good. At 10.6 points per game. His personal fouls and turnovers are a little high at both at 1.8. I mean, he's a freshman. You got to let the kid make mistakes. At 0.8 steals per game, pretty high. A little bit above league average. He is kind of low on rebounds, assists, and blocks at 0.2 blocks, 3.4 assists, and 1.8 rebounds. Honestly, 3.4 assists is really not that bad for someone like him who doesn't get too many touches on the ball. But overall efficiency numbers, he's at 32% from the field. No, 32% from 3. He is at 42% from the field and 75% from free throw, which is all pretty much right at league average. Free throw is a little bit higher than league average, but the other two are a little bit below league average. But he's been, I honestly mean this as a compliment. He's been the most average player statistically, especially a guy like him who isn't really getting too much involvement in the offense or really the defense either. But him being average is good. As a freshman, that means he's better than half the other players in the league, and there's about half that are better than him. But out of a freshman, that you can't really ask for much more. So yeah, that's DJ Wagner. I'm gonna go ahead and move on to my 5th spot, which is Alex Condone. I'm not gonna say his name the other way. I don't know how to pronounce his name either. Haven't been watching too much of that Florida basketball. I'm gonna go ahead and get those stats pulled up real quick so I can go in further depth on him. All right, so overall stats, he's at 7.4 points per game. He's been a good big man for this Florida team. His turnovers are at 1.6, which is a little concerning for a big man. You don't really want him turning the ball over that much, but I mean, it's nothing insane, nothing crazy. His personal fouls are at 2.5, which is also high, but I mean, if you're a center, a lot of center freshmen, I mean, if centers average high personal fouls and freshmen are going to average high personal fouls, and both those combined, you can't really, put him down too much for that. His steals are only at 0.4, but once again, he's a freshman. At 1.2 blocks, at 1.1 assists, 6.4 rebounds, pretty much all average numbers. 6.4 rebounds is good. You like to see that. His efficiency, not the best. 44% from a center, you don't really want to see that. 28 actually from 3, also don't really want to see that. But then again, he's a center for the 3-point percentage, and his field goal percentage, or free throw percentage, I'm getting my words mixed up. Free throw percentage, he is at 68.8. So, I mean, all of his averages are kind of low, and that's why he did make the list, obviously, but it was kind of a close call between some other freshmen. But then again, he was better than all the other options. So that sounds bad, but I mean, it's really not. He is the best center freshman in the league right now, and that's why he's here on this list. All right, and coming in at that number 4 spot, we have Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. He's been everything they want. Like I just said with all the other freshmen, he's providing super good efficiency, super good numbers. He's at 10 points per game. Personal fouls are high. I'm going to stop saying that for every freshman because they're going to be high. Turnovers are decent. He's at 0.9 steals and 0.9 blocks. That's really good for a wing player like him, especially freshman. You like to see those numbers. He's at 5.6 rebounds and 1.6 assists, which average numbers for his position, his height, all that. Shooting 59.9% from the field, which is really high. I'm just going to go ahead and round that up to 60 because why not? And he's at 68 from the free throw line, which isn't the best. Once again, that's below league average. But yeah, the only downside with him, all those other numbers look good, especially the really high field goal percentage, is the 3-point percentage. He's at 0%. I'm not sure. It's not showing me how many he's attempted, but it looks like he doesn't really attempt any, ever. He's been rebounding really good as of late. In the past 3 games, he's averaging 11.5 rebounds, 11.6 rebounds. Been really good. He's been a defensive hound for them too lately. 4 blocks against Florida, 3 blocks against Tennessee, 2 steals against Tennessee. Other than that, I mean, he's been a good player overall. All right, and so for the 3rd spot on this all-freshman team is going to be Josh Hubbard. And he's an insane player. He has just been absolutely insane for this team. All right, so he's averaging 16.4 points per game, which is the highest out of all freshmen. I mean, 16.4 out of a freshman. Do I need to say anything else about his stats? No, but I will. He's at 0.6 steals. His turnovers and personal fouls are really low for a freshman, only at 1.1 turnovers and 1.4 personal fouls. So he's taking care of the ball, and he's not doing dumb fouls over the span of the game. His blocks are low, and his rebounds are low, but he's a guard. I don't know what you expect. And his assists are only at 1.8. Can't really complain about that too much. Free throw percentage at 83 is above league average, so he's a good free throw shooter, and that's amazing for a guy like him who's shooting the ball that much. If you get to the line that much and you're that efficient, that's all a scorer really needs to do. Field goal percentage is only at 39%, which is below league average. That is not the best percentages you'd like to see. And his 3-point percentage is at 36.6, which is right at league average. But yeah, he's a headlining freshman for this SEC freshman team, and the next 2 are also headlining freshmen, and a little bit of a spoiler. But at that number 2 spot, Reed Sheppard. I've already said really everything I need to say about him, except for his offensive efficiency. Let me see. Right now, he's at 12.2 points per game, which is really high. Not the highest, but it is high. It's up there. 50% from three. Overall, his efficiency is just insane this year. Not much else to say about him. I've already covered him. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the last player on this freshman list, which is Robert Dillingham. He's been my favorite player to watch this season. No doubt. He's just so electric, so shifty. He finishes well at the rim. He gets to the rim very well. He avoids contact, plays through contact. He can shoot the ball off the dribble. What can he not do on the offensive end? Offensive rebound. But other than that, I mean, he does everything else. So adding on to everything I just said about him, he's at 15.1 points per game. He's been super efficient from the three. His overall efficiency isn't quite the highest, but I mean, he is the standalone rookie for this Kentucky team. He has been the headlining rookie for this Kentucky team. He's been second, third best player on the team, sometimes the first best player. The way he runs the pick and roll, I need to stop talking about him. I'm glazing at this point, but he's just so good. You can't not have him on this list. But yeah, that's my freshman team. We're going to go ahead and move on to the all-SEC team, the all-second team, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the first team. All right, so with this team's being a little bit bigger, I'm going to go ahead and do it 3 at a time, just to kind of speed up the pace a little bit, unless there is one player I really feel like I need to dive deep into. But yeah, let's go ahead and get right into this. That's the all-SEC second team. We got Rob Dillingham, Meechie Johnson, and Walter Clayton. All of them are putting up, I mean, just fantastic numbers. They are all just... They've been offensive juggernauts, really, all of them. I probably should be going into them each individually into depth, but I mean, they're all putting up really good numbers. There's really not much to argue with any of these guys at this on the second team. Honestly, they make a good case for the first team, really. But yeah, that's that for this side. Let's see if I can pull up some numbers just to give a little bit of support to my claims. Yeah, so Meechie Johnson right now is only at 14.3 points per game. I say only, that's really good. 4.3 rebounds and 3.0 assists, 3 even. And he's at 41% from the field. Good numbers. I've already covered Rob Dillingham. I've already given him a whole introduction, basically. So, I mean, just pretty much Walter Clayton left now. And he's been one of those players that is just, on an overall, not the best team. But he's found a way to make it work. Yeah, so I mean, overall, he's at 17.1 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, and 2.7 assists, which is just beautiful numbers. Like, honestly, he could be higher up on this list. And these next two teams, the all teams, aren't really in order either. I don't think they're position-based either, but they might be. So I'm just saying, I don't think they're in too much of an order. 3-point percentage is a little low with him at 36. He normally is a pretty good 3-point shooter, at least last year. And his free throw percentage last year was at 95. He has dropped quite a bit to 84. But I mean, overall, he's still an efficient player. So yeah, that's those 3. All right, and for the next 3 on this list, boom. Sean East II, Tolu Smith III, and Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell out of Kentucky has been fantastic. Defensive anchor for this team. The way he runs the floor, runs the pick and roll, he's athletic. You watch him and you know he's good. Tolu Smith, another guy who is just absolutely, I mean, you can't leave him off of this list. He is just such a good player. Doing everything he can really for Mississippi State in that team. I believe, like I said earlier, they are the 4th defense, and he's a big part of that. Him and his counterpart that I mentioned earlier for that defensive team. But yeah, nothing else to say really for him. Sean East, his scoring output, I know he's on literally the worst team in the SEC. I don't know if they've won in conference play. I really haven't been keeping up with them, but his numbers are just, he's been really the only bright spot for this Missouri team. I mean, their season's lost. They're 8-22. I don't think they've won in conference play at all. But I mean, he's been insane, really. I mean, at 17.6 points per game, 3.3 rebounds, and 4.1 assists, pretty much the same numbers as Meechie Johnson and Walter Clayton. But his efficiency is really good. He's shooting 52% from the field, which is just amazing to see from a guard like him who scores the way he does, and 46% from 3. insane numbers. I mean, unreal, insane numbers. So I cannot leave him off of this list. All right, and the last two on the spot is Wade Taylor and BJ Mack. Wade Taylor is just a super fun scoring guard. Some people call him a shot chucker, which, I mean, he is. He is realistically a shot chucker, but he scores the ball, and he scores the ball in such a good way. He is leading his team offensively. Every game I've watched of this team, of Texas A&M, he's pulling his team, dragging his team out of the mud for the win. I mean, you look at their overall offense, and we're even their 11th overall offense. So whenever you look at him as some guy who's scoring out of this world, I mean, without him, they'd probably be the last offense in the league. And BJ Mack, I mean, pretty much the same conversation with him out of Mississippi State. Let me pull up his numbers so I can support myself a little bit. Excuse me, I just realized I'm pretty sure I said Mississippi State first team. He's out of South Carolina, the best defensive team in the league. His defensive numbers really aren't that good. I take that back. He's at 2 blocks overall for the wing players. He's 6'8", so I mean he's a big wing, and at 1 steal per game, his fouls are kind of high at 3. He's only averaging 5. No, hold on, I'm reading the wrong numbers. He's at 0.5 blocks, 0.3 steals. So I mean, lower numbers. 13.1 points per game. He's shooting pretty efficient. His 3-point percentage is kind of low, but everything else is about league average. Nothing else really stands out too much other than that. And like I said about Wade Taylor. So that is my SEC second team. We're going to go ahead and move on to cover the much-awaited SEC first team. All right, so I'm going to reveal these players in pretty much the exact same fashion I did the last one. I'm going to do about 3 at a time just to kind of not take too much time, not slow it down too much. But we got Mark Sears, Zion Pullen, and my boy Matt. All right, so let's pull this up. So the reason Mark Sears is down here in the 6th spot, like I said, it's not really in order, but because the 2 guards above him, I think they're better. Like I said, this is pretty much the same thing as the freshman team, where it is 6 through 8 are kind of like the bench player 6-man, and 1 through 5 is kind of like a lineup. So you have your 2 guards, 2 wings, and your center. Mark Sears just fell out of those guard spots. If it was ranked in order, I'd probably put him at 3, but because the other 2 are just above him, I couldn't put him much higher. But he's leading the league in points per game. Let me get those stats pulled up at 21.1. I mean, you can't deny those numbers. I don't see him really anywhere else on this. Oh yeah, steals at 1.7. He's 5th in the league in steals. He's leading this Alabama team, which is the number 1 offense in the league. He's a big part of that. I mean, you look at the other players on their team, he is the main reason why they are so high and where they are at. But yeah, that's Mark Sears. Zion Pullen, he's been really good for this team as well. Let me get his stats up real quick. Yeah, so Zion Pullen right now, not the best numbers out of Florida, but he's at 15.6 points per game. Overall, his efficiency numbers look decent. He's at 43% from threes. That's good. That's really high efficiency, especially the difficulty of shots that he's taking. Free throw percentage is at 85. Really high, really good, a really effective, really efficient player overall. And yeah, let's see. And then Matthew Morrell out of Ole Miss. I got to give Ole Miss some representatives. And what other player to pick than him? I mean, he's just been such a good player for this team. You can't really ignore him and leave him off of this ballot. All right. And for the next 3, there we go. Jonas Adu and Janai Broome, I've already talked about them. I've already said everything I need to say about them. Janai Broome's offensive impact I didn't talk about that, but he is such an offensive unit for this Auburn team. I do have a little bit of critiques about him. People who know me know I'm not the biggest fan of him, just the eye test, but the numbers, you can't deny the numbers. And I've already talked about Jonas Adu. Jamal Mark. I had to get my Arkansas pick in here, but I probably could have switched him with someone else. I will admit that might be biased, but his numbers are insane. His defensive impact whenever you watch him, he is, I believe, 2nd in the league for guards, amongst guards and blocks. I think the only person he's below right now is Alan Flanagan out of Ole Miss. But yeah, Jamal Mark has just been insane. He's been insane for this Arkansas team, a team that struggled really badly offensively. He's been a boost on that, and a team that struggled defensive, really. There's times where I'm watching Arkansas, and it looks like no one else on the team even wants to be on the floor, and he's the only person just scoring consistently. He's been such a good player for us, and his efficiency is just unmatched. All right, and the final two players, these are the two that knocked Mark Sears out of his spot, is Antonio Reeves and Dalton Knecht. Where do I even start with these two? Dalton Knecht, best player on the best team in the league. It's that simple. Which may put him as the best player in the league. I don't know. We'll find out here in a little bit once I get to that Player of the Year award. But, I mean, 20 points per game. He's super efficient. What more can I say about him? Everybody already knows everything about him. Same with Antonio Reeves. I love watching him. His efficiency is through the roof for the amount of shots and the quality of shots he takes. They're so efficient. Such a good scorer, such a good defender. He's an all-around guard. Both these guys, I mean, what more can I say about them? Everyone knows what they do. Everyone knows how they are. So this is my all-SEC first team. We're going to go ahead and move on to the much awaited player awards. All right, so moving on to our very next subject of this episode, we have our player awards. I'm ready for this one. I'm excited for this one. So just to go over what I have, we have player of the year. Yes, I'm aware it spells potty. What am I supposed to do about it? We got coach of the year, freshman of the year, defensive player of the year, sixth man of the year, and the next two are the ones I was talking about that I created. We have breakout player of the year and newcomer of the year. So we'll just start from the bottom so I can go ahead and explain the new ones that I added. Newcomer of the year is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, except there are a few caveats to it. I debated on whether I should make it people that are strictly new to the SEC and not freshmen, so people that have transferred into the SEC out of a different division or a different conference. And I debated between that and people who just transfer to a new team in general, whether it's SEC to SEC, no matter what, just transfers that are into the SEC. I ended up deciding on strictly players that transferred into the SEC out of a different conference. So Alan Flanagan will not make my nominee list, and for that exact reason. Because he went from Auburn to Ole Miss, two SEC teams, which does not qualify for this award. But yeah, we'll go ahead and start off with my 3 nominees for this award. I try to pick about 3 or 4 nominees for each award, and I try to stick to that. Some of them, it was a tie race. But yeah, so for this award, my nominees is Zion Pullen out of Florida, Trey Mitchell out of Kentucky, and Tremont Mark out of Arkansas. Yeah, so right now with Zion Pullen, pretty much the same stuff I mentioned with the all-SEC team that he made. He's averaging quite a bit of points. The only downside and knock to him in terms of this award is that he's a little inefficient and his assist numbers aren't the greatest. Right now, he is at, this season at least, he's at 15.5 points per game, like I said. His free throw percentage is at 85.7, extremely efficient. 3-point percentage and his field goal percentage. So I lied, I guess. His efficiency numbers are a lot better than they used to be. He has been doing really good recently. I must have been, I think I was reading the wrong year originally. Yeah, so I lied. He has not been inefficient whatsoever. Rebound numbers are looking good. His assist numbers are looking good. His steal numbers are looking really, really good. Yeah. He's been super good this year. His numbers did drop a little bit from his last year. But I mean, that's kind of expected, I guess. But yeah, he's been doing really good this year. So that's our first nominee for this award. The next one, Trey Mitchell. He is at 12 points per game, 7.5 rebounds, and 3.1 assists. The numbers aren't too spectacular, not standing out or anything, but just the defensive presence he's had on that Kentucky team. I mean, on a team, like I said earlier, they weren't really good at the beginning with their defense, but he's pretty much been consistent the entire year. He's been a big part of their defensive turnaround as of late. So that's one reason why he made this nominee list. So yeah, this year, I already went over those numbers. His blocks are at 1.1, steals are at 0.8, which is, you love to see those steal numbers out of your big man. Even though he's only 6'9", he's more of a power forward than a center, like a traditional big man. But those are still really good steal numbers. Block numbers are good. Rebounds are amazing. Field goal percentage is at 48, which is a little low for a big man. But then again, like I said, he's more of a power forward, so you kind of expect those numbers. 31% from 3. Below league average is about position average, though, so can't complain about that. Free throw percentage is a little bit below league average, but like I said, he's a big man. Yeah, overall, he's just more of a well-rounded player. Not much of a like an excellent scorer, but he does pretty much everything you can imagine on the court. He's a hustle guy. He's got the numbers. He's got the eye test to back it up. So yeah, that's his case for this award. All right, and our very last nominee of this award is Arkansas's finest, Tremont Mark. He's had such an amazing season. I kind of, I talked about him earlier with the All-SEC team. All these guys have talked about in the All-SEC team. But yeah, right now, Tremont Mark is at 16.8 points per game. His three-point percentage is at 37, which is a little low, but it's still right about league average, a little bit above. Free throw percentage at 79, a little bit above league average. You want to see that probably get up into the 80s for a guy like him who gets to the line as much as he does, but not bad numbers. You can't complain about that. His field goal percentage overall is almost at 50. It's at 48.8, which I think is just any player who plays in the perimeter can get efficiency that high. It's a really impressive feat, especially in this league. Assist numbers aren't too great. His blocks are at 0.9, steals are at 1.2. He was a candidate for my defensive team. He really was. Yeah, he's at 16.8 points per game. Really good numbers, really all-around player. The thing I liked about him is that while Arkansas was struggling pretty much all throughout conference play, he was a steady guy. Like, there were times where it looked like everyone else had given up. The lead, we might have been losing by 15, and he's the only player who looks like he's really trying. That kind of like heart and hustle you love to see, especially as a fan of the team he plays for. So now it's the great reveal. Who won? This was a hard one. But I think I don't think it's hard, but it could be hard for other people. I think it's Tremont Mark. You just look at his overall numbers. I just think he's the most effective player here. He has more points than both of them. His all-around numbers are amazing. He's super efficient. He's not as efficient as Pullen, but he is a more all-around player, and for that, I think that's why he wins this award. Moving on to Breakout Player of the Year. This was also a fun one to do. There was a lot of candidates for it, but I really narrowed it down to about 3 guys. One of them I mentioned earlier, Alan Flanagan, who just barely missed this newcomer award, so that's why I had to put him in here. Let's see, he did jump from 10 to 15 points per game, which is a pretty good jump. He's really carved out this sort of defensive menace role on this new team, where he wasn't really giving too much opportunity in Auburn. He was more of like a 6-man catch and shoot, go out there and score. He's given more of a just an overall just a better situation for him. You look at what Auburn's doing, they're obviously winning a lot more, not without him, but just now with him not being there, they're winning, and he just happens to not be there. And he's on a team that's not really winning. But in terms of just excuse me, in terms of just overall impact, like his development as a player, I think this was a good move from him. I mean, you look at, like I just mentioned, obviously you want to be on a winning team, but personal stats, I feel like, those should also matter some. He's done really good. I'm going to pull up his stats just so I can get the, exact statistical jump. I know he had a really good defensive jump, and that's just looking at, the eye test. That's not even pulling up numbers, which I'm about to do, just to see if the eye test is correct for me. So last year, his steals went from 0.8 to 1.5. He doubled his steals. His blocks went from 0.2 to 0.8, so he's getting 4 times as many blocks. His assist numbers almost doubled. His rebound numbers only went up by 1, but his free throw percentage is higher. His 3-point percentage his free throw percentage went up about 7%, which is an amazing jump. His 3-point percentage did go down about 5. That's not something, it's not good looking at his 3-point percentage at 28.6, but then again, he is more involved in the offense, and his overall field goal percentage only went down by 1. And like I said, that can be accounted to, he's getting more minutes, he's getting more touches, he's more involved. That's just going to kind of happen naturally. But yeah, he's had a really good statistical year. Like I said, his points jumped up in even 5, so you can't really complain about what he's done for this team. All right, so the next player that I nominated for this award is Sean East II. I've talked about him also in the All-SEC teams. His stats are just, they're amazing this year. Other than the fact that his team isn't doing good, there's not much he can do. He's done everything he possibly could to give this team wins. He's at 17.6 points per game, which is a 10-point increase from his last season. He went from 7 points per game to 17. That's just unheard of numbers. His steals did go down a little bit. His blocks stayed about the same. His assist numbers doubled. Rebounds only went up by 1, but they're still increasing. His free throw percentage went up by 2%, so not much of an increase there. Here's the big jump. His three-point percentage almost doubled this year. He went from 22% to 46%, so they more than doubled, actually. It's such a good statistical increase. His field goal percentage went up by almost 10. His field goal percentage went from 44 to 52%, excuse me. So, I mean, all around, he's had pretty much every statistical category jumped except for steals, but he's still averaging a good number of steals at that position. So, yeah, he's had some really good jumps. So, that is my second candidate, and now we're going to move on to the third candidate, which is Mark Sears. He is a guy who is all over the statistical categories. You look at him, he was on my SEC first team. He's a candidate, pretty much everyone, for Player of the Year. But obviously he's going to be averaging a lot of numbers. But I think the jump that he had from this year to last year, he lost Brandon Miller, Quinones, I don't know, not Lester Quinones, he's in the NBA, but the other guard that transferred out of Alabama went to Memphis. But yeah, his points jumped up. Points per game only went up 9. I say only. It went up 9 points per game. He went from 12.5 to 21.1. Like I said, he's leading the league in points per game. I mean, this sort of increase, you don't really see a guy go from being like a third option to just being the best scorer in the league on the best offensive team in the league. But not only that, his steal numbers jumped up by 0.5. He went from 1.2 to 1.7 steals, so he's more involved in defense. His efficiency went up, which is really rare whenever you see this sort of usage increase. I mean, really. He went from a 34% three-point shooter, which is a little bit below league average, to way above at 44%. Free throw percentage went up only by 0.4, not 0.4, by 4%. It went from 84 to 86. So I guess only 2%. I don't know what I'm reading. And yeah, his overall field goal percentage went up by 10%. So, I mean, he's had an insane amount of jump on all of his numbers. So, yeah, now we get to do the big reveal for my choice of Breakout Player of the Year, which is Sean East II. It's just, I love to see a guy go from just 0 to hero. I mean, you look at Mark Sears, obviously he's gone from about, third option on that Alabama team, maybe sometimes second option to being the best scorer in the league. Obviously, he had a good jump. I'm not going to undermine what he's done, but Sean East went from 0 to hero. Dude went from barely making the rotation last season, nobody really knowing who he is across the league, to being one of the best scorers in the league. He's obviously not the best scorer. You look at Mark Sears' numbers, but he is one of the best scorers in the league. And like I said, his defense jumped, his efficiency jumped a lot. It's just everything. He just became a way better player this year. You can't not put him here. So that runs out my Breakout Player of the Year. And then now is my favorite part, at least my favorite award to pick from, and this is Sixth Man of the Year. I had 4 players. One of them is more of an honorable mention, so it was really technically 3, but I'm going to go ahead and spoil the one that got kicked out. So for my requirements for Sixth Man of the Year, I don't know what the official requirements, but for me, it's got to be you have to start under 10 games. Right now, Caleb Battle is at 9 games, but like I mentioned earlier, we still have one more game left. He's been on an absolute burner lately. I think he's put up 30 points in the last 3 or 4 games. He's been going insane. Put up the most points in a game this season at 42. He's been insane lately, so I believe he's going to start next game, and that's going to put him at above the minimum game started, or I guess the maximum game started threshold. So I would love to put Caleb Battle in here, but he just couldn't make it. He started too many games. Okay, so now that we have Caleb Battle out of the way, my 3 nominees that I have: Dylan Cardwell, Chad Baker-Mazara, and Rob Dillingham. 2 guys out of Auburn, and then Rob Dillingham. Dylan Cardwell, he is a little bit of a not a very popular pick. I'll definitely say that. It's probably going to turn some heads. People might be like, what is this dude on? But I truly believe he is the best backup center in the entire SEC, maybe the best backup in all of college basketball. I love watching him play. His energy that he provides, his defense he provides. Every time he dunks the ball, it looks like he's trying to rip the rim off the goal. It's amazing to watch. His points are only at 5.2, but he's getting 1.4 blocks off the bench, 3.7 rebounds. His efficiency numbers aren't the greatest, but he's not out there to score. And now that I'm looking at it, his 3-point percentage is at 40% compared to last year and the year before where it was at 0. I mean, he's not taking a lot of attempts, but 40% is still pretty good. Field goal percentage is at 70%. This is what I'm talking about. I've been talking about how there's a lot of centers with low efficiency numbers. Those are the numbers you want to see. 70% from the field. I mean, sure, he's pretty much only dunking the ball, but still, I mean, that's really good efficiency. And he's only at 14 minutes per game. And he's doing all of that in just 14 minutes. His steals are at 0.6. Don't know if I said that. He's assisting the ball a little bit at 1.1 and at only 0.8 turnovers. I mean, not the greatest stats, but the eye test, dude, you can't not put him on this list. He's so fun to watch. He's so energetic. And there's some nights I really think that he outplays his starter above him, which is, that's a player of the year candidate, Janai Broom. I think that there are some nights that he outperforms him, and you see that in the minutes that he plays. And Bruce Pearl's a really good coach at letting his guys roll out like that. But, the next candidate I have for this award is another guy out of Auburn, Chad Baker-Mazara. He's only started... Oh, I forgot to mention Dylan Carwell's only started one game, so he perfectly fits that criteria. Chad Baker-Mazara only charted... Man, I'm screwing up all of my words. Chad Baker-Mazara's only started one game as well, so he easily makes that threshold. He's at 10.1 points per game. He's been very high efficiency, and he's exactly what you want out of a six-man role. He's usually a six-man. You want them to just go out there and score the ball. I know it might counteract to have, you're thinking, how can you have 2 6-man on the same team? You got to have a 6th and 7th man. I can't pick which one of these guys is the 6th man. I mean, you look at Chad Baker-Mazara, like I said, he is going to be your prototypical 6-man. Just go out there and score, microwave type player, get hot real quick, score a bunch of points in low minutes. His last few games, he's been doing really good. 25 points against Georgia. That's what he's averaging right now. But the last few games, 15, 10, 13, 25 points, 14 points. He's been a super good scorer off the bench. Overall, like I said, his points are at 10.4 per game. Steals are at 1.1. I think I mentioned a little bit. He's been on the defensive end just hounding people. His free throw percentage is at 87. He's almost at 90. That's so good. 3-point percentage is at 43. That's really high. And he's at 45% from the field. Not much more you can ask out of a 6-man like this. He's only getting 22 minutes, which is kind of a lot of minutes for a 6-man, but 22 minutes is really not that much. That's only half a game. He's doing all of these numbers in only half of a game. Like that, he is up there for this award. And then Rob Dillingham. He's been insane. On any other team, even on this Kentucky team, I think he should be a starter. But on any other team, he's 1,000,000% a starter. He's the number one option. I mean, you look at his numbers, it's just, you can't argue him. 15.1 points per game. He's been incredibly efficient from the 3-point line. Like I said, I mean, he takes some of the hardest shots you'll ever see. Step back, side step, fade away, all of that from the 3. He takes those, and he makes them at such a high clip. His 2-point percentage isn't the best, but then again, I mean, he's taking a lot of difficult mid-range shots. He's getting to the rim. He's finishing on really hard layups, finishing through contact. He's taking hard shots. And like I said, he's been the standout freshman for Kentucky, and he's coming off the bench. I mean, there's not much you can argue with there. And his defensive impact has been, I mean, he defends. He really does. You don't normally see that kind of defense out of smaller, shiftier guards like him or offensive players. This one's really hard for me to pick. I will be honest, I really, really, really wanted to give it to Chad Baker-Mazara because in my opinion, Rob Dillingham isn't even really a 6-man. I mean, he technically is, but he plays like a starter. He plays starter minutes. He does all of that. But since he is technically a 6-man, I can't ignore those numbers. Like I said, I want to give props to Chad Baker-Mazara. I might even make this a joint award. I might give it to both of them. I think they both honestly deserve it. I think Chad Baker-Mazara is more of that traditional 6-man where he doesn't get the starter type of minutes that Rob Dillingham does. But, I mean, you just look at the numbers and Rob Dillingham, you can't deny them. So, honestly, at this point, I'll give it to both of them. I know I officially wrote Rob Dillingham. We'll ignore that. It's both of them. They both get the award. I just changed my mind live. But yeah, now that award is out of the way, we get to move on to, should I do Defensive Player or Coach of the Year? I think we'll do Defensive Player, and then we'll do Coach of the Year. So Defensive Player, let's pull up my nominees. This one was hard to do. I've mentioned all these guys so far. There's 4 nominees because I just could not pick. Number 1 on my list right now, this isn't number 1 who I'm picking. This is just who I have listed first. Janai Broom, like I said earlier, 2nd in the league in rebounds. He's tied for 1st in blocks. He's anchoring the number 3 defense in the league. He's been a monster. He's only his numbers are his minutes that he's averaging are just super low. I'm going to pull these up just so I can confirm, but last time I checked, he's not averaging like starter type numbers. And that's just a part of Bruce Pearl's system. He doesn't play guys that much. He doesn't stress out his guys by overplaying them or underplaying them. He gives pretty much everybody touches on the floor. You don't really see players on this type of team get exhausted. But yeah, his block numbers at 2.3, steals at 0.9. He's averaging a lot of steals for a center. He's getting in passing lanes. Like I said, he's only averaging 24 minutes per game. That's only 2 more than his backup, Dylan Cardwell. I mean, you look at all the other players on this list for Defensive Player of the Year, and I'm going to go and spoil it. He is a nominee for Player of the Year. His stats are insane for only 20 minutes. Now, I'm going to just get this out of the way. I'm not a big fan of watching Janai Broom play because me and my friends, we have this little joke. Every time he scores on anybody, he does the too little celebration. Every time. It's like the only emote he's unlocked. He doesn't have enough VC to unlock the others. He spent all of his VC on accessories and his hairstyle. But and he also just plays kind of weak. I do have criticisms. It's not the time. This is all about praising him. But I feel like he's the player comparison of either DeAndre Ayton or Karl Anthony Towns. All those guys are super big body. They have all the physical attributes, but they're not really athletic and they're kind of weak. Not much of a post game from any of those guys. But enough of me hating on him. I gotta stop hating. His numbers are insane. Like 8 rebounds per game, and like I said, second in rebounds and tied for first in blocks, and he's barely averaging starter minutes. He's averaging 6-man minutes. Like if he was in a different system, which I'm not criticizing Bruce Pearl because I mean I'll talk about him later. I love Bruce Pearl, but if he was getting even 4 more minutes a game, those stats look completely different. I mean, his field goal percentage, I'll talk about him later. I got to stop talking about him. And next on this award, I have is Cameron Matthews. I mentioned him earlier. He made my defensive team out of Mississippi State. He's second in steals. He's just an all-around defender. He defends everybody. He's at 7 rebounds. He's at 0.8 blocks per game at a wing, which isn't bad. It's not good, but those are good numbers. I mean, you watch him play. He defends everybody. I don't think there's a single player this man cannot defend. He has the size to guard the big men. He has the hands and the wingspan and the speed to guard the smaller guys. He can guard the bigger wings. He can guard everybody. Yeah, moving on from him, I mentioned Alan Flanagan a little bit. He's more of an honorable mention for this, but I mean, he's at 1.5 steals per game, 0.8 blocks. His rebound numbers are really high, and he's doing all of this off the bench. No, he's not off the bench anymore. That was last year. But he's doing all this on a new team. He's just completely changed his identity to being this defensive menace, which he wasn't really known for in Auburn. Yeah, people knew he could defend, but like I said, his role in Auburn was to shoot the ball. So it's amazing to see this sort of defensive just blossoming out of him. And the last guy is, I've already said his name, Jonas Adu. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right. Like I said, not enough Tennessee basketball under my belt. All right, so with him, he's anchoring the second best defense in the league. I'm not the first best defense. I'll get to that in a second, but he's anchoring the second best defense. He's at 7.6 rebounds, 1.8 blocks, and he's just doing everything. He's just doing what you want out of a center. He's playing the center's role perfectly on defense. He is a little bit rangy. He can switch out onto smaller guards. He's not going to hold his own all the time, but he can definitely guard smaller people. Not to the best, like I said, but man, I love watching his highlights. I really do. Every time I watch a Tennessee highlight recap, it's every time he's always doing something, and I just love to see it. I just want to mention a few things. You might be wondering how is South Carolina, they're the best defense in the league, and they don't have a single player nominated for Defensive Player of the Year. I looked at their players. I don't know how they have the number 1 defense. They don't really have any sort of defensive locks on their team. They're more of just a defend by system, which you can give to their coach. It's an amazing defensive system. Apparently it's working. But yeah, there's no one on this team. But they don't really have anybody who's statistically doing good. They don't have anybody in the top 20 for blocks or steals. So, I mean, you can't really... I'm not just going to force someone on here because they're the number 1 defense. And another honorable mention is Reed Shepherd. I've already went over all of his stats, but I feel like he is more of a get in the passing lanes. He's not really much of a lockdown on-ball defender. Even though he did make my defensive team, you can't ignore his steal numbers. But I think these other guys are just above him. But with all of that being said, Defensive Player of the Year is co-hosted. Cameron Matthews and Janai Broom. I've already went over all their stats. I think Alan Flanagan has been amazing, but he's not as good of a defender as these two. Um, I, the only reason Cameron Matthews, I really wanted to make him solo, but you can't ignore Janai Broom's numbers. And I just love guys that can guard everybody. So yeah, these guys are co-hosting it, which is, I don't think I can argue with it. I don't know if you can, but if you can, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. I would love to hear some feedback on this. And so now we are moving to Coach of the Year. Actually, we'll do Freshman of the Year. We'll keep going in order. Freshman of the Year. My nominees for Freshman of the Year. I'm sure you guys could probably expect this. We got Rob Dillingham, Reed Shepard, Josh Hubbard, and Aiden Holloway. I've mentioned all these guys. I'm going to go ahead and start with Aiden Holloway. He's an honorable mention. His numbers aren't good enough to make this list. But the way he did play pre-conference play in late season, I've already mentioned all this. He's been insane as of late, and in the early part of the year, his just overall numbers not good enough to make it. Super inefficient. But next guy, Reed Shepard. I've already mentioned everything I can about him. I don't think I'm going to go in too much in depth, other than the fact that he's scoring, super efficient three-point shooter, and he's defending on the perimeter. Josh Hubbard. Josh Hubbard. Leading all rookies in points per game at 16.4 right now. His field goal percentage, three-point percentage are league average. And he's leading the league in three-pointers made. He's made the most three-pointers out of everybody in the league. So he's shooting the ball really good. Just not the best efficiency, but like I said, he's taking difficult shots, and he's making those difficult shots. All right, and then the last player for Freshman of the Year is Rob Dillingham. Like these other two players, I've mentioned him a lot. I'm not going to go over too much other than he's scoring the ball really well. Super efficient from three. You've already heard all of it. Best, in my opinion, best rookie on this Kentucky team. Which brings me to my decision of Freshman of the Year award. Rob Dillingham. I can't ignore Rob Dillingham. You guys might disagree. This might be a fan pick. I don't know what it is. I just love watching his game. Josh Hubbard, I'll admit he's definitely a snub. He's really close to being Freshman of the Year. This one could also honestly be a co-award, but man, Rob Dillingham looks like an NBA player that got transferred down to the SEC, to the college basketball. He's been insane. He's really just been insane. He's been killing teams lately. His numbers have just been insane. He kills team in the pick and roll. He kills team in transition, one-on-one. He does everything on offense you want out of a guard. So that's why I have him winning this award. And then now, Coach of the Year. I do have my three nominees: Bruce Pearl, coach of Auburn, John Calipari, coach of Kentucky, and then Nate Oates, coach of I almost said Auburn, coach of Alabama. I'm gonna start off with Nate Oates. Obviously these three coaches I picked, at least two of them, Nate Oates and John Calipari, they kind of seem like obvious picks, but Nate Oates, he does have he has him. They've been insane. Alabama's been insane. You look at their personnel; they don't really look like much of an offensive killer team. Obviously, they have scores with Mark Sears, but they're leading the league. They're the best. They're the best offense in the league, by far. Really, by far. They're averaging. I guess honestly, the numbers have updated. It's really not by far. They're only averaging 90.8 points per game. I say only. That's insane for a college team. 90.8 per game is just insane. But their defense, they have the worst defense in the league. So their best offense, worst defense. They're just a fun transition team that you love to watch. Shoot a lot of threes, get to the basket quick as possible. They don't waste time on offense. They remind me a lot of the Phoenix Suns team, the 7 seconds or less with Steve Nash and Amari Stoudemire. That's just a fun offense you love to watch. And he is up here because of his system. He doesn't have the best record in the league, but he doesn't have a bad record either. They are one of the top teams in the league, top 6, I believe, right now. But yeah, we're moving on to John Calipari, who I just mentioned how Alabama, they're barely the best offense in the league. John Calipari, Kentucky, they're the second best defense, or the second best offense in the league. At 89.7 points per game, so they're really only about 11 or 1.1 points per game lower than them. Their defense numbers right now, they're not very good. They are the third worst defense in the league. Only above Arkansas and Alabama. But their defense, the second half of conference play has been insane. They have really stepped it up defensively, and that's the main reason I put them on this list, is because of that defensive turnaround. You look, he somehow has the same personnel, but he's able to get that defensive scheme tweaked to where they're just a better defensive team. Because for a while they were the worst defensive team, and they jumped up a few spots. It's kind of hard to come back from where they were, but the way that he's able to coach this team with all of these egos, and I say egos, I don't know any of them, but all these super high talents that deserve to have the ball in their hand, and he's able to manage that. It's really been impressive to watch. And then finally, Bruce Pearl. You look at the personnel for this Auburn team, and you wonder how in the world are they so high on. They're the fourth best offense in the league, and they're the third best defense in the league. They lead the league in point margin, which means that they win games by the most points than anybody else. It's not loading right now, but I believe it was at 15. They, on average, on all their games, they win by 15 points. So they do have the highest margin of victory, which is a really underrated stat. I think that's more important than overall defensive and offensive numbers. It's just been, they're at 14.9 points per game. That's how much they, on average, win by, which is just a beautiful thing to see. And then another thing that I put into consideration for putting him in this award category is just the personnel. I've already mentioned a little bit. His personnel is just, you look at this team and it's like, how in the world are they doing what they're doing? But he does it. He manages to put this team together, and that's what you need a coach to do. You need a coach to put teams together, and he's done that. And with all that being said, I'm just going to get right into it. It's Bruce Pearl. I think he got robbed last year. I genuinely think he got robbed last year. Their record just wasn't good enough last year, but now that they have a true record, I think that he wins this award. Like I already mentioned everything. I think he just deserves it. So with all that being said, we're going to go ahead and move on to the most awaited for award, which is Player of the Year. All right, so this award was a fun one for me to do because honestly, I wouldn't even say it was fun. It was stressful. I'm like, who am I going to pick? There were so many good options. We'll go and start it off. I have 4 nominees. I just couldn't narrow it down to 3. I wanted all these to get down to 3, but there was just some of them I just could not narrow down. This is one of them. Starting off with Janai Broom. I've already said everything about him. Pretty much all these players I've said stuff about, except for the next one, who is Dalton Connect. I'm not going to skip over Janai Broom. I'll go right back, but he's just take everything I said for Defensive Player of the Year and just add it to here. He's not the best 3-point shooter. He's pretty good for a center, but he's not too efficient from that spot. He's right now. He's only at. As of recording right now, it's showing that he's at 32%. So, I mean, it's not the highest, but it's not the worst either, especially out of a big man. His free throw percentage is only at 60. That's not good. But his field goal percentage is at 54. That's decent. I'd say it's about league average of what you would expect out of a center. He does take a little bit of his shots are a little too difficult than what they should be. He could definitely get a lot of easier shots, but his defensive numbers are just insane. I don't need to say more about him. I've already said plenty about him. Next player is Dalton Connect out of Tennessee. I haven't really talked about him that much lately. At least in this episode, I haven't talked about him, so this might be a little bit of a long segment for him, but I gotta give him a lot of people have him as just the best player in this conference. I mean, there's no reason that he shouldn't be in that conversation. He put up amazing numbers last year, but he's at 20.7 points per game. His personal fouls are a little high, but that we're not even going to worry about that. His defensive numbers are all right. He's more just out there for offense. His assist numbers are a little low at 1.8. Rebounds are at 4.8, which is pretty high for his position and his height at 6'6". His efficiency isn't insane. They're really good numbers. At 76 from the line, he's about league average, above league average from 3. He's right about 40% from 3, and he's at 47% from the field. Those are above league average, but whenever we're talking about Player of the Year numbers, they're just not efficient enough. But you can't argue with the points per game. He's second most in the league in points per game. You can't argue that. But the efficiency numbers are they're just not high enough. They are high, like I said, they're above league average. They're just not high enough. And he's not really doing enough on the game, like enough in the game around scoring. Does that make sense? Not playmaking enough, and he's not defending enough to really get solidified in Player of the Year. But yeah, and then my next nominee, I've already mentioned him, Mark Sears. I already talked about a lot of stuff he's doing. He's putting up some good defensive numbers, not the best, but he's defending. Leading the league in points. He's carrying this team offensively, at least this Alabama team. He's carrying them this year. Really willing them. That's all I really need to say about him. And another guy I haven't really talked about that much is Antonio Reeves. Like I said, second best offense in the league. He's been a really good defensive player for them. I'm going to pull up some of these numbers since I can. That way I can give him some props, just like I just did with Dalton Connect. He's at 20 points per game. His steals are kind of low at 0.7, but blocks are also only at 0.2. But he's still defending. He's not much of a steal or block. He's not much of a defensive stat kind of guy. You can just watch him play, and he plays defense. He hustles. Assist numbers at 1.7. His rebounds are at 4.2. About pretty much so far, the numbers are about the exact same as Dalton Knecht, but this is where it separates him from Dalton Knecht. Free throw percentage is at 87.9, almost at 90%. He's shooting the three-point percentage at almost 45%. He's been insanely accurate, especially with the difficulty and degree of shots he's been taking. And his overall field goal percentage is at 50%, which means he's making half of the shots he takes, which is just incredible to see. Really efficient, really efficient, really efficient. I can't stress enough how efficient he's been. These Kentucky guards have just been super efficient. All of these Kentucky guards I've mentioned so far, all the way down to DJ Wagner, they've all been super efficient. And he's been the best out of all of them. I know I've been giving Rob Dillingham a lot of praise, but he's been the best. I've been talking enough. Player of the Year, Antonio Reeves, out of Kentucky. I almost spoiled it right there by saying he's been the best player in the league. He has been, in my opinion. I don't think you can argue it. I think Kentucky, because of their kind of slow start, they didn't really have a good start pre-conference play. That's why the record isn't too good. But I think they've been the best team so far. You look at Tennessee numbers, you look at teams like Auburn, South Carolina. I think Kentucky's been the best team. Their record doesn't say it, but if you watch them play, they look like an NBA team. They've got everything you would want. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. But yeah, they've got everything you want out of a team. And he's been the best player on, in my opinion, the best team. Dalton Knecht's been the best player on the best statistical team, the best record-wise team. But I think Antonio Reeves has just been the best player. So now that I've gotten out all of my awards out of the way, we get to do the fun part, which is tournament predictions. I will have to jump to tomorrow because, like I said, the games aren't finished yet. I got to wait till everybody, the records are finalized and all of the power rankings are finalized, and that way I can actually make the bracket correctly and get all that done. So I will be right back with that bracket tomorrow. All right, welcome back. It is a new day. All of the games just finished up, so we have the official rankings and seedings for each team. So I'm back, new shirt. My bed isn't made. It's a new day. I didn't feel like making my bed for this part of the episode, but hopefully I impressed you guys with the first half of the episode. My bed was made, so a little bit of a downgrade now, but we're still here. I'm gonna go through this bracket real quick. I'm not gonna try and take up too much time, but yeah, we'll go ahead and start off with start down here with Missouri and Georgia. This one's easy. Missouri still hasn't won conference play. Hold on, I'm actually gonna double check that because I'm not 100% sure if that is a fact or not. All right, so I did my research. LSU and Missouri are still playing right now, but as of now, Missouri still hasn't won conference play. They're losing right now. Whether they win or not, it's not swaying my opinion. I don't think they're making out of this first round. They just haven't looked good. They've looked better as of late. They don't look like a real team right now. I feel bad for their fans. No, I don't. I don't feel bad for their fans at all. But I feel bad for the players who are actually putting in that work. And they're not really seeing much out of it. But yeah, I moved Georgia up. I'll update you guys later, I guess, if Missouri wins as of now. But like I said, that's not changing it. This next one. Arkansas versus Vanderbilt. My team versus Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt overall, they haven't been good. Neither is Arkansas really, but Vanderbilt did just beat Arkansas just a few games ago, I believe last Wednesday maybe. I'm not sure. They did beat them though. I don't think this is a bold pick, but like I said, I could be biased. I think Arkansas is winning this. I just think they are simply the better team. They're one of those teams, and they say it a lot on the broadcast. They just said it against the Alabama game. Arkansas is a team that can they have the chance to win the whole thing or they can lose this first round. So they're not a guaranteed win in this first round at all. I understand that, but I just think they're objectively a better team than Vanderbilt, and not often does Arkansas lose both games in a season to the same team. That just doesn't really happen that much. They did obviously lose Kentucky both times, but we'll get to them later about what I believe with Kentucky. So yeah, we'll start off with the top now since we started at the bottom with Mississippi State and LSU. This one is also, in my opinion, I think this is an easy option. LSU has been good, but they haven't been amazing. They haven't really done too much to make me think they're going to beat Mississippi State. And Mississippi State has Cameron Matthews, who I picked as my defensive player of the year. They just have an overall, in my opinion, better team. So they move on this round. And like I said, I'm kind of flying through this, but once we get deeper into the matchups, I'll obviously be going more in depth. Ole Miss and Texas A&M. This is a really good game, actually. This is probably one of my favorite games of the whole tournament, and it's only the first round. I love what Ole Miss has been doing this year, but once again, they're one of those teams that just, on the eye test alone, they haven't really looked that fantastic compared to some of the other teams. I don't have any of the stats pulled up right now because I'm trying to get this video out. But I talked about a lot of the team stats for them. I believe so earlier in this episode. Maybe I didn't, but all that yapping through. That's at least my yapping for Ole Miss. Right now with Texas A&M, they haven't looked really good either. They really haven't. But with their players they have with Coleman and Wade Taylor, I really think they have the star power to overcome Ole Miss. Ole Miss has had a pretty good defense as of late. They have Allen Flanagan on the perimeter to help, mitigate what those guys can do. But at the end of the day, I really think Texas A&M, they're more veteran. They're more of a developed and more. They just have better team chemistry. They've been together a lot longer than Ole Miss has. So I think A&M. I think they could definitely come out with this win. That there is a good chance they don't. If Wade Taylor and Coleman don't play to what they could do, they're not winning. Which they have struggled to do as of late. It's not really something you would love to see out of this team, but I really think they can pull through in the tournament. They did really good last year with this kind of a pretty similar lineup, but with the main guy still being there, I believe in them come tournament play. So now we're moving down to Georgia and Florida. Florida really isn't a team I'm too impressed with. Like, honestly, I'm really not impressed with them. Same with Georgia. A lot of these teams in the middle of the pack, they haven't really shown me too much, but I think Georgia's scoring guards that they have, I talked about Walter Clayton a little bit earlier, I think they just have the scores to, in a grinded out tournament kind of play. And Georgia just came off a win. I'm going to mention this real quick. These teams in the very back, Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Missouri, and Georgia, if they want to win the tournament, they have to win a total of 5 games. The teams up here that got a double bye, so you have Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, and Alabama, they only have to win 3 games, and the teams right behind them have to win 4. So the teams at the very back are already at a major disadvantage. They're going to have a super hard path to run through. It's going to be a hard one. But with that being said, I really don't think Georgia's going to come out on top on this one, just because. And another thing to mention is the games are back to back to back. So like, you play one night. If you win, you play the next night. If you win, you play the next night. If you win, you play the next night. So it's all back to back. There's no breaks for any team really. So these teams that are on the back half, they have to go 5 nights in a row of amazing basketball. That's really hard to do. And this Georgia team, I'm not too impressed with them, so I can't really see them coming out back to back and pulling out games. So I got to give this one to Florida. I just think they're the better team overall. Obviously, they're the better statistical team. And the eye test helps me with that, helps prove my point with that. And just Georgia coming off the game, they just played a game the night before. I don't think they're going to come out and pull through with that one. All right, so I'm back. So this last matchup I'm going to cover for this round is going to be Arkansas versus South Carolina. Sorry, give me a second. I got to give my laptop some space. So last time these teams met up, South Carolina did come out victorious. It looks like they won by 13 points. But this was earlier in the season. At this point, Arkansas was 10-8 and South Carolina was 15-3. Okay, South Carolina came out to a really hot start this season. They can continue to stay hot. That's why they have this seeding that they have. So let me defend my Razorbacks a little bit. As of late, they've been playing a lot better. They're playing like a team. The chemistry is up. We're getting Caleb Battle to score out of his mind lately. He didn't play too hot against. Well, actually, he played pretty good against Alabama, but we didn't come out victorious. But we've been playing a lot better. And like I said, Arkansas is a team that can really just show up and show out. This is a hard pick for me. Because I think Arkansas, the way they're playing right now, is better than what their record shows. Coach Muss has proved that he is a tournament kind of coach. I do have a lot of complaints about him as a coach overall, but he performs in the tournaments. SEC tournament, he performs in March Madness. He performs in a lot of tournaments. With that being said, I have to make some controversial picks here. Hold on, sorry, I got to fix that. It's bugging me. Call me a homer. Sorry, South Carolina fans, but I think Arkansas moves on. I think they're playing better basketball right now. That is a really hard pick, though. That honestly, I could pick that either way. And I feel like if I wasn't an Arkansas fan, I'd pick South Carolina. So I'm acknowledging the bias with that, but I really do believe, I could be delusional, but I really do believe that they could win that. And that if I were to pick, I would say they have the odds at probably 51%. If I wasn't a fan, it might be down to 40. I have no clue, but that's the second round of the playoffs, the tournament done. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the bottom right here. This is a fun one for me. Because I don't want to just go through and pick the obvious teams to win. But some of these teams it's kind of hard to pick against. Alabama right now, they're number one, the number one offense in the league. You look at Florida, though, they're not far behind either of them or Kentucky. They're the number 3 offense in the league, only 5 average points per game lower than them, just right above Auburn. And Florida's defense, they're at 11th. So they're a better defensive team than Alabama, and they're a little bit worse offensively. If I pull up their point spread, they are below Alabama at only 7 points. They only win by 7 points, whereas Alabama wins by 10. But the offensive and defensive ratings are very similar. This is a hard one for me to pick. Man, this is tough. You know what? I don't know, because Alabama's going to have plenty of rest. It's hard to pick Alabama. I almost went Florida, but Florida just played a game the night before. But who knows? Maybe that puts Florida in the mood to win. Maybe they're just... I'm doing it. Call me dumb. Call me stupid. I'm going to... it'd be boring if I were to go up here and just pick the number one team, the favorite team to win every matchup. With that being said, picking the favorite team, I'm picking Kentucky. Sorry. But, Kentucky, they've been playing, as of late, they've been playing like an NBA team. Their offense is super fluid. They have so many scoring options that if one or two of these guys have an off night, let's say Reed Shepherd and maybe DJ Wagner have an off night, you still have Rob Dillingham and you still have, not Reed Shepherd, you still have Antonio Reeves. They have so many offensive threats. Their big man presence is insane. They have so many bigs who go out there and rebound and block. It's so hard for this team to have an off night as a team because they have so many threats on their team. I can't not pick them against this Texas A&M team that has been really streaky, and if their top 2 players don't perform, then they don't win. So I've got to pick Kentucky on that one. The next matchup, Arkansas and Auburn. All right, I'm going to let my homer bias get out of the way. This is obviously Auburn. I'm not going to waste time and draw it out and make you guys think I'm going to be super delusional. Auburn and Arkansas played earlier this season. I think it was the first game of conference play. Arkansas looked good, and then they just got completely swamped out. If I'm not wrong, it was about a 30-point loss that we had. So that's not the best looking statistical number to look at. I'm pulling it up just to be sure. Yeah, 83-51. They beat us by 32 points. And Auburn's gotten a lot better. I think this would be a really good game if Arkansas makes it this far, but I don't think they're making it any farther than this. Auburn has been on a hot streak. They have the best coach in the league. In my opinion, they're a good team, and they beat teams. They beat teams by a lot. I think I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. They have the highest point margin in the Olive League. They win their games on average by 15 points per game. Auburn, they beat teams. In this next matchup, we have Tennessee versus Mississippi State. This one also, I feel like there's no argument. If you ask me, I think Tennessee's been the second best team in this league. Obviously, statistically, they're the number one team, but just based off record. But I think just overall, I think they're the second best team in the league. They have Dalton Knecht up at the top. They also have can't remember his name. Their other point guard. Excuse me for not remembering his name. But they have their bigs are so good. Their defense is so good. If I'm not wrong, they have one of the top defenses in the league. Yeah, second best defense in the league, only behind South Carolina. They've been an amazing team. Their offense has definitely picked up as of late, with their offense being number 5. They're a really good team. I think they're second in point spread. It's hard to argue this team. I'm going to look up their point guard because there's no reason I should not be knowing his name right now. There's no reason. Zakai Ziegler. I didn't even have to look it up. I mean, It looked like I looked it up. I didn't get there. Zakai Ziegler at the point. They have Jonas Adu, which I know how to pronounce his name now. He was on my defensive team. I think he might have made my all SEC teams as well. Sorry, I recorded yesterday. I don't remember. But yeah, it's hard to argue against them. So now, this is the 4th round of the bracket. The only upset I've really had so far is Arkansas and South Carolina and Florida on Alabama. I think that's the only upset I've had, other than like just some minor ones. But this matchup right here, Tennessee and Auburn, I'm going to save that one for last because I think this one will be a better matchup than Kentucky and Florida. I think, like I said, Kentucky's the best team in the league. I don't think there's any conversation. They're beating Florida. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're the better team. They're winning. For all the main points I made against Texas A&M. And plus, this is the 3rd game for Florida. It's only the 2nd game for Kentucky. So Kentucky has had time to build up that rhythm and that flow to win this game. So I really think that's not really much of a debate on that one. Sorry, Florida, your run ends here. Sorry, Arkansas had to lose their run. It hurts. It hurts to go on a good run like this. Yeah, I just don't think you can argue it. This matchup right here, though, Tennessee and Auburn. This is I think I said this Ole Miss and A&M game would be fun. I think this game will be better. This will definitely be a better game. You look at Auburn, like I said, they have the number 1 point spread in the league, but then Tennessee's right behind them. I think it's only a 1-point difference. Yeah. Auburn wins by a total of 15 points per game, and Tennessee's at 13 points. So it's only a 2-point difference. I think Auburn has a number 4 offense, so they are better offensively than Tennessee. And they have the 3rd defense, so they are just a little bit worse than Tennessee on defense. So it's a really close matchup. I know Auburn lost last time they played. It was a really good game. They got beat by Dalton Connect. And as of late, Dalton Connect's really been the only good player for this Tennessee team. Obviously, they're I'm talking in terms of scoring. But this might be the next upset of the tournament. I think the number 1 seed gets knocked out by Auburn right here. And Auburn's on an absolute burner right now, so I got to pick them. I got to put them over Tennessee. So now it's the final 2. With everything I said, you look at Kentucky, they are the number 2 defense, just barely behind Alabama. And overall, throughout the whole season, they're the 3rd worst defense in the league. So their defense isn't too good, but as of late, like I said earlier, their defense has been picking up. Their point margin that they win by is at 10, so it's definitely well below Auburn. But the way their defense has been, their offense has just been magnificent recently. Their team, I think I saw a stat, they're shooting as a team 40% from 3. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's well above league average for a player, let alone a team. But Auburn, you can't count them out. You really can't. They run so many players. They have such a deep lineup, just like Kentucky. Both teams have a deep lineup. I think Auburn has a better coach. I think they have the best coach in all the conference. That's why I gave him that award. But John Calipari, legendary coach, is a legendary team, legendary. It's a legendary matchup. Really, this is like my dream final matchup for this tournament. Both teams have only played 3 games up to this point. I guess only two games up to this point. This is their 3rd game. Really balanced. Honestly, you could flip a coin and really pick which team you think would win. But the problem is with Auburn, I don't think they have enough scorers with Kentucky. I think Kentucky's defense with Reed Shepard, Antonio Reeves, Rob Dillingham, DJ Wagner, all those guys on the perimeter, I think they can slow down Aiden Holloway, Katie Johnson. I think they can slow down Chad Baker-Mazara. They have the size. They have the strength. They have plenty of big men to throw at Janai Broome. And like I mentioned to earlier in this episode, I think Janai Broome is one of those guys. If you put a bigger guy on him, he can't score on him. I mean, he will, but not much. At least not one-on-one. He doesn't have much of a post game, and he can't really be big on them. I think Kentucky muscles their way through. I know this Kentucky feels like the easy pick to win all of it just because, Kentucky's historically, they're one of the blue bloods, if you will. They're one of the best programs in all of college basketball. The hype behind them, a lot of people want to pick against them just because of the hype that they have. But like I said, before this season, I've been a Kentucky hater. I don't like this Kentucky team. I don't like their fans. I don't like their players. I don't like the hype. You can't argue with this year. They have such a beautiful offense. Their defense, their transition offense and defense are insane. Their half court offense is good. Their half court defense is decent. They let a lot of threes happen. They let people shoot a lot of threes, but their paint presence is insane. They get rebounds, they hustle, they run. They've been the perfect team this year. I know their record doesn't show it, but I mean they did have a little bit of a rough start this year. But I just think this team is, you can't argue against them. So this right here is my official bracket for the SEC tournament. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let me know. I'm a delusional Arkansas fan. Maybe I'm hating on Tennessee. I could be hating on Georgia. I could be hating on Alabama. Let me know. That's why the comments are there. But this is just my personal opinion. This isn't me. Yeah, this is me predicting what I think is going to happen. This isn't what I think most people think would happen. I would definitely say most people would pick Tennessee over Auburn. They would pick Tennessee probably to win it just because they're record-wise the best team. I think a lot of teams would pick South Carolina over Arkansas, Alabama over Florida. But, you know, I mean, you can't just pick a perfect bracket and just pick the favorite to win every single round. So that's kind of my mindset behind this. And, you know, I'm an Arkansas fan. I got to give us love. And I'm not delusional. I'm not going to say we're beating Auburn, especially with us playing 2 previous games and Auburn not even playing yet. Yeah, that's my bracket. I appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully you watched all the way. Hopefully the timestamps helped with just navigating the video. But yeah, this is all I have for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Hopefully we'll be covering, once this tournament is over, I'll do a recap on it and I'll do a preview of March Madness. Maybe I'll post my bracket on here. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next one.